Hey DeoGenZ, what is this be? It's Gaming Gauntlet podcast, you see. From current gen to even retro, I share with you all the info I know. We pull samurai blades, don't forget to save. This gauntlet can flaunt it so even trolls are phased. Come push start, get ready to play. Gaming Gauntlet is here today. Welcome to another edition of the Gaming Gauntlet podcast. I'm your host, DeoGenZ, and it's been so long, I know. And we're just going to have to accept these podcasts. They're going to be infrequent for a while. What can I say? I'm doing the learnings and trying to get degrees in these things, and in the process, time is of the essence, and it's very limited. But today, when the episodes do come out, I can assure you it will be packed with copious content, things that you couldn't hear or see from anywhere else before, but on this channel. And today we've got such of an interview by Mike Roush, the co-founder of DeoGenZ Games. He'll be talking later about his experience of making Runner 2, his thoughts on the video game industry, and other things, so you'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. But first of all, we got to talk about Mew 3. Mew 3, oh my goodness, where did this come from? Is it a new form of Mewtwo? Is it a form of Mew? No, I think if you read what Nintendo has officially announced, that it is a familiar looking Pokemon, but it's a new Pokemon, and that's paraphrasing, of course. That's what they actually said. I don't believe that it's another form of Mew or Mewtwo, which is good, because as Jay Witz had said, there's way too many forms. It seems as though Nintendo's getting form crazy. You know, Deoxys kind of kicked that trend going. Ever since then, we got different forms of Shaman. We have multiple forms for the genie Pokemon, the guys sitting in clouds, and the Giratina forms. There's just so many freaking forms. And for Pete's sakes, you can't even use them in the regular Wi-Fi battle mode. At least I don't know how to use them. Maybe there is a special cup that allows you to utilize forms, but I don't know of it, and I don't want another form. So I gotta say, it looks cool. Reminds me sort of a Majin Buu form, if you remember when he had like the long gummy strand coming from his brain. But yeah, that is the news on the Pokemon front. This new form, X and Y, we'll find out. Will Mew 3 face Mew 2? Here's what I'm thinking. Here's my opinions on this idea, is that it's another form of Mew, but another form in that it's a whole new genetically created Pokemon. It's the same base DNA of Mew, but maybe plasma scientists or whatever new evil team there is have reformulated it to make it what it is now. So instead of having this long pink strand on its ass as a tail, it's got it on its head, because why not? We need new Pokemon, and now it's up to who knows it. I swear it's going to go to 1,000. I mark my words. It will go to over 1,000 Pokemon. Other than that, what's the news in the YouTube lands? Oh, I don't like the new design. No likey the new designy. Not at all. It smells like Heine. It sucks. It doesn't allow for any spotlight video. It allows for a preview trailer, but that preview trailer is only seeable, as I understand it, by those who are not subscribed to me already. So if there's something important like, I don't know, this podcast that I want everybody to see, it's not going to be placed on my YouTube channel like, bam, right there. It's going to be hidden amongst many other videos, because I upload every freaking day. And hopefully you guys have been enjoying that. Let me know in the comments below the rate at which these videos have been going up. A new video each day. It's been alternating between De Blob and No More Heroes. Pokemon Coliseum is coming back. It's going to be premiering on the weekends. Shortly after this, I'm going to only leave this podcast for the weekend because, like I said, I got to find a way to sort of counteract the way that YouTube's redesigning things, and until I figure that out more efficiently, you might want to go check me out on Twitter. Follow at DeoGenZ, because every time I upload a video, it tweets. But also Twitter is another endless stream of, oh, I can't find the archives of that, so where was that video? I don't know. I'm going to have to do a site redesign or something of that nature, because it's getting ridiculous. Although, how many people go to websites? Not many. It's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Maybe Instagram, maybe Tumblr. It depends what kind of faction you're on. But that's enough rambling from me. Let me know your opinions on the new YouTube layout. Is it easy or difficult to find your subscriptions? Is it more of a hassle? Do you know when new things come out? Here's pretty much what I do, and hopefully if you're a fan of the content, you will do the same. I go to the channel of that person that I'm following, and I know that, every so often, maybe once a month, maybe a couple times a week, they will post a video. So I'll check around that time, and lo and behold, they have videos on the upload section, but it's so well hidden. And it's not even that hidden because you got that stream of uploads, but I don't know. The whole thing's a wreck. I don't really care for it at all. But you know what? I know many other people didn't care for the past YouTube layout changes and designs, so it's kind of a thing that's always in flux and changing, and we're just going to have to get used to it because that's YouTube. But that's enough from me. As I said, I want to know what you think. And now it's time for the interview with Mike Roush. Enjoy it! Hey everybody, you're listening to the Gaming Gauntlet podcast interview portion, and today we have Mike Roush, co-founder of Gaijin Games, the creators of the Bit Trip series, here with us today. Hello, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. You guys recently released a game called Bit Trip Runner 2, correct?
That is correct, and it actually has a longer name than that, but we don't have to say it today.
Well, if you do want to see what I'm talking about, I'll leave an annotation in this video. You can click and check out the Let's Play that's going on this channel. It's Future Legend of Rhythm Alien. And why is it that Commander Video's future, of all the different gameplay styles that he's encountered throughout his saga, has come to this sequel? Why a sequel of Runner and not, say, Bit Trip Fate?
That's sort of a multi-tiered answer to your question. And I think the simplest answer is Runner 2 for us. Well, Runner 1 was more fun to make, and Alex and I just got off. We split off into two groups. I worked on Bit Trip Saga, and Alex did Complete, and it was really hard for both of us. So we just wanted something fun to do, and a deeper meaning would be that you can actually connect to the character in Runner 2, I think, better than Fate. He runs, he jumps, he slides. It's all things that we're all very familiar with being gamers.
Right. So, you mentioned that you work on Saga and Complete. What were some of the challenges that you had with the 3D handheld system? Did you have to figure out the depth sequence of how to make the game pop?
Yeah, that was actually it was actually very difficult because we did not make the original games for the 3DS. And I think if we went out to do that, we would have been a lot more successful. However, all the games are made in full 3D. We make them with in Maya, and there's plenty of depth to them. So the challenge was basically getting the games on the device, and we had been in the first round of people that got 3DS dev kits, and they were because they were it was such a young system, we were getting a lot of documentation in Japanese, so we were basically just getting the game on there was the difficult part.
Yeah, running through Google Translate.
Yeah, running through Google Translate, and then I very specifically remember one time, if you'll notice on Runner, on the 3DS, the foreground where Commander Video is and the buildings have no 3D on it. It's only the background that has the 3D.
Mm-hmm.
So having to cut that was a very difficult decision. But the way it worked, it was just basically you couldn't play the game. So it was very hard to be able to have to cut certain things that you didn't want to cut.
Yeah, speaking of things that you had to cut, was dealing with the accelerometers on the 3DS a pain? Because it almost seems counterintuitive. It's a really awesome notion, and for a game like Bit Trip Beat, where originally you were using the Wii Remote to sort of like a paddle arcade style, turn the beat paddle to hit all the beats. Was that a problem because it obscured your view of the 3D?
It was a problem, and it's something that we were definitely bummed out to have to cut. On the flip side, being able to use the stylus for beat was a benefit. So I would say that the device has so many forms of input that we were able to get around that. But the accelerometer stuff, you even with some other games like Luigi's Mansion, they do some things with the accelerometer that are interesting, and yet it instantly kills the 3D experience.
Yeah, that seems like a really hard problem to figure out on a handheld, because how do you simultaneously get a person's head and eyes to move with the small twitch movements of a hand required in a game?
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets difficult. But 3DS is not the only handheld that you can find BitTrip on. You can also get BitTrip Beat on iOS devices too. Do you plan on releasing further handheld versions, maybe onto Android systems?
So we actually Beat is actually on Android via we got it on there for one of the Humble Bundles. I would say that you will probably see Gaijin Games doing some more tablet-based games in the future. In terms of the original BitTrip series being on sort of my father calls them touch boxes.
Touch boxes.
We will probably have more Gaijin games on touch boxes, but the original series, they were never meant to be there, and so we don't feel like we should shoehorn them in there just to have games there. Runner might make it, depending on if we can kind of do a control scheme that works, and Runner 2 is definitely going to be on touch boxes.
That's pretty cool. And I think that Runner also had a larger audience too, because that was when you started to branch away from Nintendo. Is that right? When you didn't just do WiiWare, you also moved to Steam?
Yeah, so like it's kind of funny because everyone thinks that Runner was our biggest and most successful game, and in a lot of ways it was, and it actually just recently has surpassed Beat in sales.
Wow.
Up until recently, Beat was definitely our sort of flagship, and I think it was on WiiWare longer, it's been on the Earth longer, so there is that you can say about it. But it's also, Beat is sort of what we've been known for, so everyone wants to pick up a copy of Beat. But yeah, our audience grew when we got on Steam significantly.
Do you think that Steam has the power to eventually silence the console wars? I know they just got the big picture mode, and there's been some rumors of maybe a Steam box coming out in some time in the future. I don't know if that's really true, but do you think it has the potential with its lower price games and ability to kind of interact with the gaming industry with the Greenlight program?
Well, this is something that is a hot topic in our office right now, and I'm actually writing another article about this subject as we speak. I think that, unfortunately, I think consoles are making it very hard for these sort of mid-range games to be on their platforms. So my answer in the long about sort of way is that I think Steam, if they go in the direction I think they're going to go, they will win out, just because of ease of use for developers, ease of use for gamers. I mean, there's certain things that I find to be so easy with Steam. Like, I could gift you one of our games in under a minute, and it would just go to your email and you would be able to play it. We wouldn't even have to be friends. There's so many things about Steam that are just easy, and the one thing that they don't have that I need is I need a controller in my hands, and I don't want to sit at my computer because I sit at my computer all day. And if they can come up with this sort of rumored Steam box, which I don't know if is true or not, then I think that we're going to see some amazing things from Steam, and the main consoles will probably be left in the dust.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement completely. I mean, just recently I saw that on the Greenlight program, the angry video game nerd is now getting his own video game. So, I mean, from going to Uber fan to game developer, it seems like the pathway is a lot more possible through Steam.
It's unbelievable. If I were to explain to you the steps of releasing a game on console globally, we would sit here for an hour and a half. And I will tell you, releasing on Steam, you upload your game, you give them some artwork, and you are released globally, and that is it.
That's incredible. That is really amazing. And, you know, to jump back into Runner 2, which also has the controller compatibility, which I also have a big preference for, too. I have a gaming laptop, so to sit over that thing, the entire board gets hot, and it's just not a comfortable way to play.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot more inaccuracy in using the keys on the keyboard. You just don't get that good button press that you do with the controller. What was some of the motivation behind the characters in Runner 2? I mean, you got a burger lady, a pickle dude. Like, where do these things come from?
Well, Runner 2 sort of, it's all about fun, and the game is about fun. It's about having fun. We really wanted to have an outlet for people to be happy and just enjoy themselves, although some people get frustrated by Runner. But we just wanted to have fun during the making of them. So we would just come up with some wacky idea, and, you know, we'd put it in the game. So the funny thing about Wet Fart Cheeseburger is, we were back at PAX East, and I had been saying this Wet Fart Cheeseburger. I just thought it was a funny thing for a long time. And one of our guys, Jason Cirillo, said, "I bet you can't say that in an interview." And so someone was interviewing me, and they said, you know, "What are there any surprises in Runner 2?" And I said, "Yeah, we're going to have a character called Wet Fart Cheeseburger." And it was a total joke, but lo and behold, sort of, you know, 2 weeks later, I think we had him in the game. And they also come from something that's kind of interesting, which is the checkpoint system. And we didn't want checkpoints in the game, but it was literally the #1 thing that anyone has ever talked about ever with any bit trip game. So I wanted to make the craziest checkpoints that you could ever have on Earth, and I wanted it to be the type of thing where if you avoided the checkpoints, you get a reward, and you got a good reward, and, you know, the Uncle Dill will go nuts and jump over the ledge, and the checkpoint sort of gets more interesting. So I wanted people to actually push themselves as gamers and not fall into the trap of, you know, just completing the game.
Yeah, that definitely feeds into also the leaderboards, which, you know, those were missing from the WiiWare versions of any BitTrip game, but it's such a great addition to have it on Steam. I've been versing my friend score-wise. I'm doing an LP and he's doing an LP on his channel of Runner 2, and we're going back and forth trying to beat each other's top scores, and, you know, that's one of the ways to do it. Another thing you can do is dance, which I'm waiting for somebody to come out with like a full combo video style for Runner 2 where they show you the best points where you can dance for maximum score. I'm waiting for that day.
Well, there's also something interesting there, and I think we have got a pretty cool scoring system. You can play the game in easy, and in theory, if you're good at dancing, there's a lot of levels that playing it in easy, you can score higher points than playing in medium, and sometimes hard. So we really want that to be sort of an open arena for you to explore.
Was it easier for you to make the decision to put in different modes of difficulty than it was to add the checkpoint?
Yeah, difficulty mode, you know, it was in it that, well, actually, it wasn't easier. We knew we wanted them, and I think partially because we were making a bigger game on more consoles and platforms. So the difficulty modes, at one point we got into this thing where it's like, my wife likes to play Runner, but she's really not super good at it. And she was bummed out that she wasn't able to have sort of a chance to see the story and how the story progressed. So we wanted to get those levels in there, but we didn't know how to do it in a way that seemed fair for all gamers. And I think we ended up on a pretty good system where you can play through the game on any level at any given time, and you don't really get dorked,
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's no detriment for doing it, but you do have the option. And we got around sort of, we make hard games. Gaijin games, we make very hard games. So we wanted to give people all these sort of layers to be able to get rewards and have accomplishments, specifically with the perfect system. So we added that difficulty in there, but we were able to get three difficulty modes, which I think was a really nice balance of game design.
Yeah, it definitely was, and I agree that having the accomplishments in there, like getting different costumes and unlocking different pathways through the levels, is a big rush to go back through the game and play more. You initially memorize the pattern of the level, then you want to jump through it again so you can get the max score. What made you decide to bring Commander Video into more, or rather less, retro graphics territory? It's been bit trip with chiptunes and minimum graphics, although very colorful and appealing to the eye. What was the idea that made you push towards this new design?
We were fairly sick of the old art style. There's nothing wrong with it, but we were at our sort of tipping point, and we had constructed so many rules around the world that it was difficult to sort of work within them and have more flexibility and creativity. So that was one aspect. The other aspect is we made that original style because it was sort of an easier thing to make for these. The original games took 3 months each to make. So that original style was something we could do within that 3 months. And we started to feel like we were getting typecast into this retro studio that makes these sort of Atari 2600 styled games with a twist. And so we were looking for sort of a intermediary game to go from that style to a more modern aesthetic and some different art types. So Runner 2 was only supposed to take 6 months to make originally, so we were going to just do this sort of quick hit, but it kept getting bigger and bigger, and so that's why we broke out of that. And the style that we kind of settled on was it was more inspired by like 60s cartoons, and you can kind of see it with some of the characters, but that was the base sort of stylings. Like, what if you made these 60s cartoons into a full 3D world?
And when you're designing a 3D world, how can you avoid the commonalities of the video game Desert Land and Aqua World, Lava World? How do you mix that up and make it your own?
Well, again, Runner 2 is sort of like, I would say that it was sort of masturbatory for us. I always wanted to make Nintendo games, and so, obviously Nintendo games always have these, these worlds that you speak of.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely wanted to add them, but sort of show this sort of twist on them. And basically, you get the first world's this cloud world, and then a water world, and then you get into this foresty world, which gets less happy, and then the lava world is basically the whole Earth is scorched and everything's gone. We never say that anywhere in the game, but it's like my bizarre little twist on what we wanted to do. And if you look at the game level, the lava world it's not a lava world. It's that the whole place is finished, and you can see some oil pumping stations throughout there, and it's sort of, you know, a social commentary on some aspects. But we really sort of wanted to embrace those sort of archetypes of the lava world. We did want to do an ice world as well, but the whole company has problems with ice world because the slipperiness of it is adding complex gameplay that shouldn't be there, and so I don't know.
Yeah, I understand what you mean as far as the lava world not being just about lava. You know, you start out in these happy hills and everything's pink and wonderful, fluffy and shiny and colorful, and then you go to the level that's literally called the Mounting Sads.
Yeah.
But how long did it take to test drive this game? How long did it take to calibrate all the jumps correctly?
We had a good jump on it, if you will, because of Runner 1, but we tested it. I played this game more than I've played any game that I've ever worked on, and we just sat there and over and over and over again. If something didn't feel right, we kept going back and fixing it. So I can tell you that I think we had our Steam build up for about half the project. I spent a quarter of my time playing the Steam build, and I had like 150 hours just on that Steam build. We had some internal testers that were giving us feedback as well. You know, if something felt funny, they would tell us and we'd try to fix it. And you know, we had some interesting things that we had to sort of fix. The funny thing is the collision. If you notice that you can really clip through a lot of the characters, and there was a lot of tuning, sort of just jumping over a character. So we spent tons of time playing it.
Yeah, I would imagine so, because some of those jumps that you have to do, especially the slide jumps that you implemented, which really tuned up the difficulty, I gotta say. You know, that's so specific to where you have a little margin of error.
Yeah. Well, if you saw how the collision worked, you would go, "Oh, I see how that's working out." So I don't know. Maybe I'll show you one of these days.
Definitely. You know, something new to Runner, other than just the mega ultra voiceovers that you had in the past games, is that you had voiceovers done by Charles Martinet. What was it like working with him?
It was just completely awesome. I mean, if you've ever seen a picture of his face, you can understand that he is just a very happy man. He is really sharp, really humorous, very intelligent, and on top of it, he is just a complete character. And he's also completely a professional. So we went into the recording studio, and before I knew it, I mean, he was plugged in, he was doing voiceover like within minutes. So I would say it was a highlight of my life, that time we had in the recording studio.
Yeah, especially wanting to make Nintendo games. I mean, there's Mario right there.
And during the whole thing in between, he would do some pretty funny voices that we know about, and it would just make us all laugh.
That's great. Do you have any tips for other voice actors out there who are looking to break into the video game industry?
I would say I can only give you what I would do, and it's sort of how I started making video games. Is, you know, I'd try to get involved in something and work for free, if not cheap, just to get, you know, resume pieces under my belt. And um, other than that, voice acting is different because you can go unionized with it. It's an interesting part of the video game industry, where you can actually be in a actors guild, or not. You can go fully independent. So I would say definitely explore each end of those. But yeah.
Huh, that's interesting. I didn't know it could go either way. But since we're speaking about video game as an industry, every single game, whether it's hardcore or casual, console or indie game, how do you think that indie is changing the way games are made? Do you think that it's changing the bar for price points or changing the expectations for games?
I think that it's shown the world that if you want to make a game, you can make a game. You just have to do it. And from my point of view, I have some friends that make AAA games that are just totally inspired by the fact that Gaijin Games at one point said, screw it, we're going to go make our own games. And I think that just this humongous influx of indie games has really just proven that if you want to be a game developer, on some level you can do it. And I think it's also been, I think it's raised the bar for making sort of good, meaningful video games. Like, it doesn't have to just be sort of the same old stuff that we've had for years. You can put a story, a touching story into a video game and still have the game be compelling. So I think in a lot of ways it's raised the bar on that level. I think, and I'm not sure about this, but I think having the indie game experience be sort of a smaller, more concentrated experience has made people's taste in games. It's like, I would argue that 5 years ago, most of us would play 40 to 80 hour video games, and that's what we looked for. Like, we wanted, even 100 hour. And now I think people are really looking for like a 9 hour experience. And I don't know for sure, but I wonder if, indie games being these sort of shorter, concentrated experiences for a lower price point have changed the way we think about games.
I think they definitely have, and also open it up to a whole new kind of person who wouldn't even think about playing a game before, where they thought it was just about the arcade. Now it's all packed up in their smartphone.
Yeah.
If anybody has a free 5 minutes, somebody is undoubtedly playing a game.
I agree with that.
And I think that's definitely, in part, big time from the indie movement. But if you move to a studio, just say, hypothetically speaking, that had unlimited resources, would you change your indie style, or would you just try to implement more of the resources that you had into what you already do?
I think that, it's an interesting thought experiment rather. I have ideas that I want to make that are sort of on the level of a AAA game. I would call them AA games maybe, but I think I would make the same sort of experience as a Runner 2 type game in terms of probably production. I think I'd make a little more polished and a little richer, but I don't think I would go too crazy. And actually, now that you mention it, if I think about what I want to do next, it's actually more of a smaller sort of experimental fun thing. And so on a certain level right now, Gaijin Games has, we have resources to put into the next thing, but we may not actually go super crazy. I don't know yet.
Yeah, it's it's hard to think of the what ifs, but it's cool to see that you wouldn't really change the style of of what you'd be making. You wouldn't just all of a sudden switch to making high caliber first person shooters or something like that.
No, we wouldn't. And the funny thing is that's sort of what I wanted to do when I got into the gaming industry. I worked on a Quake 3 mod called Urban Terror back in the day, and that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to make first person shooters and I sort of, I don't know, I fantasize about it still in the back of my mind, but yeah, I don't think I'd ever do that.
Yeah. So, as a gaming fan, does anything for this upcoming E3 excite you? Maybe the price point of the PlayStation 4? How about that?
Yeah, I think...
Take out a loan to get that?
Yeah. I'm interested to... I'll tell you what interests me the most. And this is just coming back from GDC. And this isn't really about actual video games, but I want to see how the consoles handle themselves at E3. GDC was sort of an eye-opener for me because Xbox didn't really have a presence there. Wii U had a very small booth. Sony had a nice sized booth like they always do, but the focus on consoles was very, very much diminished than previous GDCs. And I saw way more tablet and third-party tablet sort of booths and vendors than any other GDC. So I'm interested to see if the consoles are just holding back, or if we're beginning to see the death of the consoles.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to see if that was this year. 2013, the unlucky year of the consoles.
Yeah.
But, I think Nintendo also picked up on that. I think when they realized they do have to take the iOS devices as serious competition to their DS and 3DS products, I think they saw that, and that's why they went with the integration of like a tablet controller into the Wii U. But I still don't understand. I mean, maybe you as a game developer have a better perspective on this. What could be implemented on a tablet controller that isn't being done or couldn't be done with the current technology that we have?
Well, I think that if we were just making games for the Nintendo Wii U, we would put so much emphasis on that controller. So I think that there are more opportunities in that controller than just, let's say, like an iOS device. And it basically comes down to just how creative you are with the device. What really makes me sad is that it wouldn't be cost effective for us to make a game on that device, and I don't think it would be cost effective for anyone just to make a game for the Wii U when there's so much greater of an opportunity for you to be successful on this or this. It's like I have this at my desk right now and I can play tons of games. So I think it's more that I don't foresee people being able to make enough revenue on a Wii U using the gamepad, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to simply be towards one console these days when there's so many eyes on so many devices that you want to be on all markets, kind of.
Yeah.
But something on the sidelines to all these console wars going on is a new thing called the Oculus Rift. Have you heard anything about this?
We actually have a dev kit at our office.
That's amazing. I'm thinking of pre-ordering a dev kit myself and seeing what I can do with it. It's pretty impressive. This is something I've dreamed of for probably my whole life, being able to be immersed in the video game. I was hoping that it would have that kind of effect with the 3DS, but due to that latency of you moving your hands and your head not together, it kind of messes up the effect and takes you out of the game sometimes. But how do you think that this Oculus Rift will change the way that games are integrated into people's lives, much as these smaller handheld phones and other devices have to bring games to other people?
I've used the Oculus Rift, and it made me a little bit motion sick when I used it. But I think that they had a I think it was Doom 4. They had the Doom 4 demo, and I think they just gave me the wrong thing. What I saw in it was an extreme potential. The thing is very cool. So it basically, I think it's going to boil down to if people design games for the device, because I don't think you could put that thing on and just play Doom 4. I think you would get sick. But I am very much hoping that that thing goes off. I think it is really the beginning of, like you said, every dream we've ever had as sort of game nerds is like full immersion, and it's been such a thing of sci-fi for so many years. You know, it's actually being in the game. But I don't know. I laugh about it all the time because I also think that, you know, what are the psychological repercussions going to be from this?
Right. We're still not even sure what the psychological repercussions of being on the internet is, and yet we're jumping into this new technology.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of just never ends, really.
I think it's good. I'm very excited about it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, and I think I saw on their website that Valve is starting to back it and try and program things for it. I don't know if they're going to remake Half-Life on it or make something new, but that's definitely that's good propulsion for it if Valve's there.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have support for the Oculus Rift on one of our games soon, and I think we're gonna try it internally with Runner 2, but I think it's gonna make us sick. I don't know how we would be able to use it.
Yeah, that's gonna be that'd be a pretty crazy demo. You'll have to flop around on the floor to do all these side jump kicks and things.
Yeah, totally.
And what's the controlling of the Oculus Rift? I mean, how does it tell where you want to go, and say you're in Doom? How does it know that you're shooting?
So in Doom you had basically it was just you had a controller. You were playing as normal, like you normally would.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, what threw me off, is because if I'd start strafing and turn my head, that would sort of send you doing a movement that you weren't used to. But we have talked about trying to make sort of like a one-click game where it's wherever you look, and then you just click one button to have actions. And I think that would be more intuitive to where you would want to be, is basically like leaning, tilting. But we just got our kit in, so I don't know anything about the specifics of it yet. I'm not even sure we've opened it.
Right. Now, separate from the indie game movement, but kind of like a side arm to it, I always admire these communities, the modders that have all popped up on Steam. What are your opinions of them kind of making games infinite, you know, with the Portal 2 endless mods that you can do, and Skyrim as well? Do you foresee you ever integrating that into some of your games where it's open access?
Absolutely. This is something. The funny thing is, you've asked so many questions that have been things that we have been discussing in our studio at this point, and this is definitely one of them. And again, like I said earlier, I come from a modding background, and it does something that I think is really interesting. You know, it makes it so you can be involved in the game and show creativity sort of like as an armchair game developer, but without having to, you know, really have to go through the arduous vigors of game development. And so I think it just ends up spurring a lot of really cool creativity. And to put a limit on that, I think would be a shame. So I think whatever game we do next is probably going to be more Steam oriented, and, you know, really try to get the community involved and hopefully have something that they can, you know, make their own items for. I would absolutely love for people to be able to create their own characters for Runner 2.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, and that's something I'm talking about with the team, you know, is can we make something that will make this work? But I doubt it will happen, but I would love that.
Well, maybe for future iterations, but that's also a point where Steam definitely reaches farther than the consoles. You know, Microsoft is so heavy on locking down everything, and the same thing with even Apple devices too. They don't want you tampering around with any of its parts. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we've seen so many amazing things come out of modding. There's a game called Jurassic Park Trespasser that, you know, was made, I think, in the early 90s, and it was sort of released unfinished. So what these modding communities did was build a website, I believe it's called Trescom, around it, and basically fix the game so that dinosaurs can enter the buildings and that things are actually challenging. They added new worlds, and it just keeps on spawning, and it's like these stories of the games, they sort of live on in their own fanfic/modding communities forever.
That's amazing. I'm so impressed by it constantly.
Yeah, it really is incredible. But for those wishing to transition their way out of the modding area and more into the indie game development zone, what kind of programs would you recommend they use?
So we actually use Game Maker for rapid prototyping. One of our guys is quite proficient with it. And he just makes things so quickly with it, and I know that the barrier to entry is very small. I think you can even get it for like $20 or something ridiculous. And of course Unity, they give away for free, so you can kind of start making games in Unity right away, but that's more of a, you know, you're dependent on 3D objects. It's harder to make a 2D game in Unity. But, you know, Flash, people have been making amazing Flash games for years, and we also do some rapid prototyping in Flash. So I don't know, I would say that between those three things, you can probably make anything that you wanted.
That's excellent. And as far as the music goes, can you do all the sounds and things that you'd implement for the OST in that program as well?
I think so. So like, probably or Game Maker is probably not as robust, but yeah, I would be willing to bet that in a very short amount of time we could make Runner in Unity, and I think that it just has everything there that you'd need, and definitely with Flash, you could set all that up.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much, Mike. That's all the questions I've had. You've been a wealth of information. Would you like to tell the audience where they could find your games and follow you on the Twitter, Facebookosphere?
Sure. Runner 2 could be found on PC, Mac, Linux through Steam right now, or you can get it on PSN, XBLA, Wii U's eShop, and I am at Mike N. Roush. That's Roush on Twitter, and I just had a child, so you probably don't want to follow me on Facebook.
Well, thanks for the tips. All right, guys, I will see you in another episode of the Gaming Gauntlet podcast. Be sure to comment below, give some feedback, like, share, all that good stuff. I'm DeoGenZ, and I will see you next time.